Hollywood makes the Oregon Trail look like a grand adventure of brave pioneers conquering the Wild West with nothing but grit and determination. But here's what they don't show you. Most travelers spent their days kneed in mud, fighting off mosquitoes and their brains out from dysentery. The Oregon Trail wasn't some heroic journey. It was 2,000 miles of pure misery that 500,000 people somehow convinced themselves was a good idea. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. Super curious where you're all listening from. So drop a comment with your location and what time it is. There always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world. All right, let's head back to 1847. Trust me, it's going to be quite a ride. So, congratulations. You just woke up in a cramped one-room cabin in Independence, Missouri. It's April 1847, and your eyes are struggling to adjust to the dim light filtering through the oiled paper window. The rough hew wood floor beneath your straw mattress is cold against your bare feet. You can smell coffee brewing over the hearth fire mixed with the lingering scent of last night's cornbread and the earthy musk of the nearby livestock. Your name is Thomas Benton. Well, that's what everyone's been calling you since you were old enough to pull weeds from your par's cornfield. And this morning isn't like other mornings. Today's the day your family joins a wagon train heading west to Oregon, 2,000 miles of unknown territory stretching ahead of you. Your par has been talking about Oregon for months now. Ever since your neighbor Mr. Wilkins came back from a meeting in town with wild stories about free land 160 acres for anyone willing to work it. That's bigger than the entire town of Independence. That's more land than your family has ever dreamed of owning. Thomas you up. Yet your Ma's voice cuts through your thoughts. She's already been awake for an hour, packing the last of your family's belongings and cooking breakfast. Coming, Ma. You pull on your rough cotton shirt and homespun trousers. The fabric is scratchy against your skin, but it's sturdy. Needs to be for what lies ahead in the main room. Your little sister Sarah is helping Ma pack food into a wooden crate. Your pair is outside checking the wagon. One last time, you've spent the last month getting ready, selling most of what you own, buying supplies, fixing up the old farm wagon. Eat quick now. Mar says, handing you a tin plate with cornmeal mush and a strip of salt pork. We need to be at the meeting spot by 7. The food is hot and filling you. Savor it knowing that meals on the trail won't be this good. You've heard stories from other families who've made the journey. 6 months of hardtack beans and whatever game the men can shoot outside the April morning is cool but promising warmth. Later, your pair is walking around the wagon checking every bolt and joint. It's not one of those big Konos Stoga wagons you've seen in drawings. Those are too heavy, too expensive. Yours is a farm wagon, what folks are calling a prairie schooner, with wooden hoops bent over the top and a canvas cover stretched tight. Morning, son. Par says when he sees you. Ready for the big adventure? You nod, though your stomach knots with a mix of excitement and fear. You're leaving behind everything you've ever known. Your school, your friends, the graves of your baby brothers who didn't survive their first winters. Come help me with the oxen. P says, the 4 oxmen are already yoked and waiting. They're not the family's original work animals. Par traded the farm horses for these beasts last month. Horses might be faster, but they can't pull as long or eat as little as oxen. And they're more likely to be stolen by Indians. Indians. The word sends a shiver down your spine. You've heard stories. Some say they'll attack the wagon trains. Others say they're mostly peaceful. Your Mar packed an extra tin of sugar and some bright cloth scraps for trading with them, just in case. By the time the sun is properly up, your family is ready. The wagon is packed so full you can barely see inside it. Barrels of flour and cornmeal, bags of beans, dried meat, coffee, sugar tools for farming and building your Mars, prized cast iron skillet, and Dutch oven seeds for planting your pears, rifle, and ammunition, and a small chest with your family Bible and your Mars wedding quilt. Everything else you owned has been sold or given away. There's barely room for people in the wagon. Not that it matters. You'll all be walking most of the way. Only the very young, very old, or very sick ride in the wagon's time to go, P says. And there's a catch in his voice. He was born in this cabin, built by his own father. Leaving it behind is harder than he lets on. Ma wipes her eyes with her apron, then squares her shoulders. Sarah clutches her rag doll, the only toy she was allowed to bring, and looks up at you with wide eyes. It's gonna be okay, Squirt, you tell her, though you're not entirely sure yourself. The wagon cacks as P flicks the reins and calls to the oxen. The wheels turn, and just like that, you're leaving the only home you've ever known. The journey to the meeting spot takes less than an hour as you approach. You see dozens of other wagons already gathered in a large field on the outskirts of town. Men are checking harnesses and wheels. Women are organizing supplies. Children run between the wagons, playing tag, while they still can. At the center of it all stands a tall man with a bushy beard and weathered skin. This must be Mr. Davidson, the wagon master, who will be leading your train. Your pair told you. He's made the journey 3 times. Already hard to imagine anyone wanting to do this more than once. As your wagon pulls up, other families nod in greeting. You recognize some from town. The Millers with their 5 children. Old widow Jenkins, who's traveling with her son's family. The Browns, who sold their blacksmith shop to buy supplies for the journey. Mr. Davidson climbs onto a wagon and raises his hands for quiet. The chatter dies down as everyone gathers around the folks. He calls out his voice carrying across the field. Today, we begin our journey to Oregon country. We've got about 120 wagons, 430 souls by my count. That's a good size, big enough for protection. Not so big. We'll strip the land bare as we go. He pauses, looking around at the faces turned up to him. I won't lie to you. The trail ahead is hard. Some of you won't make it to Oregon. A murmur runs through the crowd. You feel Sarah's hand slip into yours, squeezing tight. But most of you will. Davidson continues. And what waits for you? There is worth every hardship. Land, freedom, a chance to build something new. He goes on to explain the rules of the trail, how the wagons will travel, who takes what positions, the importance of staying together. Each family will take turns at different duties. Scouting ahead, guarding the livestock night watch. We move out in 1 hour. Davidson finishes say, your goodbyes to independence. Next stop, Oregon country. As the crowd disperses, you look back toward town. The church steeple is just visible over the trees. You wonder if you'll ever see it again. Thomas, your par calls. Help me secure these barrels. And just like that, there's no more time for wondering. There's work to be done. The next hour passes in a blur of final preparations. The wagons are arranged in the order. They'll travel. Your family's wagon is 20th in line. Mr. Davidson rides up and down the line, checking that everyone is ready at precisely 9. Oh, he fires a pistol into the air wagons. Oh, he calls the train lurches into motion. The lead wagons start rolling, and one by one the others follow when it's your turn. Par calls to the oxen, and your journey truly begins. The first day's travel is easy. The road out of Independence is well-worn and relatively smooth. The oxen plod along at about 2 miles per hour. You walk alongside the wagon with Sarah, while Mar sits on the wagon seat with P. The other wagons stretch ahead and behind, as far as you can see, like a great snake winding across the landscape. By midday, the excitement has worn off. Your feet hurt, and the dust kicked up by the wagons ahead makes you cough. Sarah is dragging her feet, complaining of tiredness. Up you go. You say, lifting her onto the wagon. There's no room inside, but she can sit on top of the canvas-covered supplies. When are we going to get to Oregon? She asks. You laugh, not for a long time. Squirt, we've got about 170 days of this. Her eyes widen. That's forever. Oh no, just until October or so. You tell her we'll get there before the snow falls. If we're lucky. If we're lucky. You've heard the stories of the Donna party trapped in the mountains by early snow last year. The rumors of what they did to survive, you shudder and push the thought away. The first day ends after about 15 miles. Mr. Davidson signals for the wagons to form a circle for the night, not because of any danger from Indians this early in the journey, but because it's good practice. The circle creates a corral for the livestock and defines the camp setting up. Camp is chaotic at first. No one quite knows what they're doing yet, but within an hour, tents are pitched, fires are lit, and the smell of cooking food fills the air. Year is making a simple supper of bacon and beans with biscuits cooked in the Dutch oven buried in coals. As darkness falls, someone pulls out a fiddle and starts playing. Others join in with harmonas, a banjo, even a tin whistle. People gather around the fires, singing songs from back. Home Sweet, Betsy from Pike. Oh, Susanna Buffalo. Gals, you sit with your family, watching the stars come out above the prairie. They seem brighter here away from the lights of town. Sarah falls asleep in your Mars lap, worn out from the day's excitement. Get some rest. Par tells you tomorrow's another day on the trail. You crawl into the small tent. Your family has pitched beside the wagon. The ground is hard beneath your blanket, but you're too tired to care. As you drift off to sleep, the sound of distant singing mingles with the lowing of cattle and the rustle of the prairie wind. The routine of trail life establishes itself quickly up before dawn. Breakfast of coffee and biscuits hitch the oxen and on the trail. By 7 walk all day with breaks to rest. The animals make camp at dusk. Eat, sleep, repeat. The landscape changes gradually as you move west. The familiar woods and fields of Missouri give way to open prairie. The grass stretches to the horizon, waving in the breeze like a great green ocean. After a week on the trail, you reach the Kansas River. It's your first major river crossing, and the excitement in the camp is palpable. Some of the smaller streams you've crossed so far were simple. The oxen waded through, pulling the wagons behind them. But the Kansas is different. It's wide and deep with a strong current. Mr. Davidson calls a meeting. We'll be fing the wagons across, he announces. There's a trading post here that runs a ferry. It'll cost $2 per wagon. There are grumbles from some of the men. $2 is a lot of money. It's that or risk losing your wagon and everything in it. Davidson says sharply, I've seen too many people try to ford this river and lose everything. Some lost their lives. That quiets the complaints the crossing takes all day. The ferry is just a large raft that can hold 1 wagon at a time. The oxen swim across separately by sunset. Half the wagons are across with the rest to follow tomorrow. Your family's wagon makes it across without incident. Though watching it float on the rickety ferry makes your heart pound. The oxen bellow in fear as they're forced to swim, but they make it to the other side dripping and exhausted. That night, camp is split between the 2 sides of the river. You can see the fires of the other half of your train across the water. It feels strange to be separated, vulnerable somehow. Will there be more rivers like this? Sarah asks as you sit by the fire. Many more. Parr says the Platte, the North Platte, the Sweetwater, the Snake, the Columbia. Each one a challenge, but we'll cross them all, Ma adds firmly. Just like we crossed this one. You nod, but in your mind, you're counting the rivers ahead. Each one a potential disaster. Each one a barrier between you and your new home as you lie in your tent. That night, listening to the rushing of the Kansas River, you wonder what other challenges await on the long road to Oregon. The next morning, you're awakened by a commotion. People are shouting, running. You scramble out of the tent to see what's happening. A man from another family is being carried into camp. His leg bloody and twisted at an unnatural angle. His wagon had broken loose on the ferry and crushed his leg against the riverbank. The wagon train has no proper doctor, but Mrs. Peterson was a midwife back in Illinois. She takes charge cleaning and spinting the leg. The man's screams make Sarah cover her ears and bury her face against Mar's skirt. Will he die? Sarah whispers. No, honey, Mar says, but her face is grim. A bad injury like this with months of travel ahead, you all know his chances aren't good. By noon, the rest of the wagons have crossed the injured man's family, decides to turn back to independence. They can't continue with him in this condition. 3 other families choose to go with them, shaken by the accident, and no longer sure they want to face the trail as they depart, heading east while your train continues west. A sobering reality settles over the group. You've been on the trail just over a week, and already your numbers are smaller that night. There's no music around the campfires. People speak in hushed voices, glancing back toward the river as if it marks a boundary they can never recross in a way it does. You're committed now, Oregon or bust. The next morning it rains, not a gentle spring shower, but a prairie deluge. The canvas wagon cover drums with it, water finding every tiny hole and seam. The ground turns to mud that sucks at your boots. With every step, the oxen struggle, sometimes sinking to their knees. Progress slows to less than 10 miles that day. By evening, everyone is soaked cold and miserable. Making fires is nearly impossible with wet wood families huddled in their wagons or under them, eating cold food and trying to stay warm. Your Mar somehow manages to keep a small fire going long enough to heat coffee. The hot liquid is the only comfort on this miserable night. The rain continues for 3 days. On the second day, one of the wagons gets stuck so deeply in mud that even with 4 extra teams of oxen, it can't be pulled free. The family has to unload everything, carry it forward through knee-deep mud, then take the empty wagon apart and reassemble it on firmer ground. By the time the skies finally clear, the mood in the wagon train is grim. This is the reality of the Oregon Trail. Not a grand adventure, but a grueling test of endurance. But as the sun breaks through the clouds on the 4th morning, spirits lift clothes and blankets are spread out to dry. The trail begins to firm up by afternoon. You've made 15 miles. A good day's progress that evening. Someone brings out a fiddle again. The music starts hesitantly, then grows more confident. People gather, drawn by the cheerful sounds after days of misery. Soon there's dancing, not formal dances like back in town, but simple reels and jigs that anyone can join. You find yourself pulled into a circle dance by Miller's daughter, a girl about your age with freckles and a quick smile. The mud is forgotten as you spin and stomp, laughing at your own clumsiness for a few hours. The hardships of the trail fade away. You're not pioneers facing an uncertain future. You're just people enjoying music and company under the vast prairie sky as May turns to June. The wagon train falls into a rhythm. Wake, eat, travel, make camp, sleep. The days blend together, marked only by changes in the landscape and the occasional landmark. You cross into what Mr. Davidson calls Indian territory. The land here doesn't belong to the United States. It's home to various tribes, some pushed west from their original lands. Everyone is more alert, now scanning the horizon for signs of danger. But the first Indians you encounter are peaceful. A small group approaches the wagon train, led by a man in a mix of traditional dress and white man's clothing through a translator. One of the scouts who speaks a little of their language. They offer to trade fresh meat for coffee and sugar. Your par gives Ma a nod, and she brings out the trade goods. She packed. The exchange is quick and respectful on both sides. That night, your family enjoys fresh venison instead of the usual salt pork. See, Par says to you and Sarah, most Indians just want to trade same as anybody else. You treat them fair. They'll treat you fair. You nod. But you notice he still keeps his rifle closer than usual. That night, as June progresses, the heat becomes intense. The prairie stretches endlessly. The grass now bleached yellow by the sun. Water becomes precious. Some days, the only sources are muddy streams or stagnant ponds. The oxen are losing weight, despite the abundant grass. The pace slows as Mr. Davidson insists on longer rest periods during the hottest part of the day. Disease appears in the camp. Several children come down with measles spreading quickly among the wagons. 2 of the youngest die and are buried by the trail, their small graves marked with stones and wooden crosses. Sarah catches it too, her face covered in angry red spots, a small body burning with fever. For 3 terrifying days. You watch Ma tend to her, bathing her with precious water to bring down the fever preying over her at night. You take over, driving the wagon, so can help with Sarah. And Mark can focus on nursing her. On the 4th day, her fever breaks. The relief in your parents' faces makes your own eyes sting with tears. You're too old to shed. You're getting to be quite the wagon master. Par tells you, his hand heavy on your shoulder. It's the closest he's come to saying he's proud of you by the end of June. You've reached the Platte River. Unlike the Kansas, it's wide but shallow, more of a giant muddy puddle than a proper river. But it's still a milestone. You've traveled about 250 miles from Independence, only about 1.5 meters to go. The wagon train spreads out along the Platte, following its course. West. The water isn't good for drinking, too silty, but the river valley provides a natural road. West and water for the livestock. One evening, as you're helping Par with the oxen, Mr. Davidson rides up Benton. He says to your Par, I need your boy tomorrow. We're sending a hunting party out. Need someone quick and quiet to help drive the game. Poe looks at you, a question in his eyes. You nod eagerly after weeks of walking beside the wagon, the chance for a different task. A man's task is exciting. He'll be ready at dawn. Par tells Davidson that night. You can hardly sleep. A real hunting party. You've helped P hunt back home. But this will be different. You'll be helping feed the whole wagon train in the gray light before sunrise. You join the hunting party, 5 men, and you. The only boy, they give you an old flint-lock rifle that's almost too heavy to hold. Your job is to circle wide around any game they spot and drive it toward the waiting hunters. The day is long and hot but exhilarating by sunset. You've helped bring down 3 deer and a dozen rabbits when you return to camp with the meat. You stand a little taller for the first time. You feel like you're truly contributing to the journey, not just following along as the wagon train continues along the Platte. The landscape begins to change. The endless flat prairie gives way to more varied terrain. In the distance, you can make out the first hints of hills, the beginning of the long climb toward the Rocky Mountains. July finds your wagon train reaching Fort Kearny, a military outpost on the Platte. It's the first sign of white civilization you've seen in weeks, and the excitement in the camp is palpable. The fort itself is unimpressive. just some wooden buildings surrounded by a low wall. But to your eyes, after so long on the trail, it looks like a city. There's a small store where families can replenish supplies, a blacksmith to repair wagon parts, and best of all, a post office where letters can be sent east. Your M spends the evening writing a long letter to her sister back in Missouri. You add a few lines at the end, telling your cousin about the hunting trip and the Indians you've met. The letter will take months to reach them, carried east by military couriers and stagecoaches. The wagon train stays at Fort Kearny for 3 days. It's a welcome break from the constant travel. The oxen rest and graze on relatively fresh grass. People wash clothes in the river trade stories with other wagon trains and enjoy the luxury of sleeping inside the fort's walls, safe from any potential dangers. But the trail beckons Oregon is still more than 1,500 meters away, and summer won't last forever. On the 4th day, Mr. Davidson gives the order to move out. The wagons form their line once more, and your journey continues as July turns to August. The real challenges of the Oregon Trail still lie ahead. The easy part is over now. Come the mountains, the deserts, the hardest river crossings. The journey has already changed you. Your skin is dark from the sun, your hands calloused, your legs stronger than they've ever been. But the Oregon Trail will demand more from you yet. And in your heart, a question burns. Will it all be worth it when you reach the promised land of Oregon? Only time will tell. The Platte River becomes your silent companion for the next several hundred miles. Unlike other rivers that cut through the land, with purpose the Platte sprawls lazily across the prairie, a mile wide and an inch deep. As the joke goes among the wagon trains, it's really more like a foot deep in most places, but still, you could practically walk across it, if you didn't mind getting wet. August has settled in with brutal heat. The water in the Platte is too silty to drink full of fine sand. That'll tear up your insides. Instead, folks dig wells near the river about 10 feet deep, where the water seeps in clearer after filtering through the ground. Your daily routine has solidified into something between misery and monotony. At 4 a.m., the night watchman fires his rifle to wake the camp. You hear your M stirring immediately. The rustle of her dress as she crawls out of the tent. She's always first up, starting the morning fire before most folks have even opened their eyes by 4:30. You're pulling on your boots. They're stiff from yesterday's mud, cracked from constant wetting and drying. Your feet have calluses on top of calluses. Now, when you started the journey, you had 2 pairs of boots. You're on your last pair now, and they're falling apart. Some folks have taken to wrapping their feet in rags when their shoes give out. Sarah stirs in her blanket next to yours already. She mumbles, "Yep, Mare's making Johnny cakes. Better get up if you want some warm, the smell of cornmeal." Cooking on the skillet gets you moving. Mar works magic with the simplest ingredients: cornmeal water, a pinch of salt, and a scrape of precious sugar. When she's feeling generous, everyone has the same basic supplies. But no one makes Johnny cakes like your ma by 500 a.m. P has rounded up the oxen from the night's grazing. They look thinner than they did in Independence, ribs starting to show through their hides, but they're still strong. You've seen other families lose oxen to exhaustion or disease without oxen. A family is stranded, dependent on the charity of others. To continue breakfast is quick. Johnny cakes with a strip of salt pork and bitter coffee that Parr and the other men gulp down like it's mother's milk. The beans are running low, so coffee is getting weaker by the day. Some families have taken to roasting prairie turnip roots. As a substitute, tastes like dirt, but at least it's hot while you eat. You're already packing up the tent. Comes down, blankets rolled tight, everything secured in the wagon. Nothing can be left loose or it'll be bounced right out when the wheels hit a rut at 700 a.m. Sharp. Davidson fires his pistol in the air. Wagons. Ho, the train lurches into motion, same as every day, the squeal of wheels and creak of wood, a familiar symphony. Today, your family's rotation puts your wagon near the back. It's the worst position you eat. Everyone else is dust, and if there's trouble up ahead, you're the last to know about it. The morning drive is always the best part of the day. The air still holds some coolness from the night, and the oxen move with purpose before the heat saps their strength. Sarah walks beside you for the first hour, playing a game where she tries to step only on your footprints in the dust. You've got giant feet. Thomas, she giggles, stretching her legs unnaturally to match your stride, all the better for walking to Oregon. You tell her by 10 a.m. the sun is high enough to start baking the land. Sarah's retreated to the small space on the wagon seat beside Ma. You keep walking, one foot in front of the other. Your thoughts drift as you walk back to Independence forward, to Oregon sideways, to nothing in particular. Sometimes you talk with John Miller, a boy about your age who walks beside his family's wagon. His par was a blacksmith back in Ohio, and John knows all sorts of things about metal and fire. Other times you walk in silence, conserving energy in the growing heat at noon. Davidson signals for the midday rest. The wagons form a loose circle, and the oxen are unhitched to rest in whatever shade they can find. It's too hot to cook, so lunch is hard. Tack rock hard biscuits made of flour and water baked, until they'll last for months, without spoiling. You dip yours in water to soften it enough to avoid breaking a tooth. Some days there's a bit of dried meat or cheese to go with it, but not today. The heat of midday brings an eerie stillness to the prairie. Even the insects quiet down, waiting for the worst to pass. The only sounds are the soft lowing of the oxen and the occasional cry of a baby from one of the wagons. Everyone moves slowly, saving their strength. Ma has taken to using this time to check Sarah's hair for lice, a constant battle on the trail where bathing is a rare luxury. Sarah squirms under Ma's fingers, but knows better than to complain. You've seen what happens when lice get out of control. The Pearson family had to shave their daughter's head last month when they couldn't get rid of the infestation at 2 p.m. It's back on the trail. The afternoon stretch is the hardest, hot, dusty, and seemingly endless. The landscape barely changes, just the Platte River on your right and the prairie stretching to the horizon on your left. Occasionally, you'll pass the grave of someone from an earlier wagon train, a stark reminder of the trails, dangers. Some have proper markers with names and dates. Others are just mounds of earth already being reclaimed by the prairie grass. The most unsettling are the possessions abandoned along the trail. Furniture trunks, even entire wagons left behind when animals died or loads needed lightening back in June. These discards horrified everyone. Now they're just landmarks 2 miles past the broken piano. Someone might say when giving directions, today's excitement comes around 4 p.m. when a scout rides back from the front of the train with news of a buffalo herd ahead. The wagons halt while Davidson and the hunting party ride out. You wish you could go with them, but only the men with horses are chosen. They return 2 hours later with 3 buffalo bulls already butchered into manageable pieces. Fresh meat is cause for celebration tonight. Everyone will eat well. Camp that evening is more animated than usual. The smell of roasting buffalo meat permeates the air. Families share their portions with neighbors, creating a patchwork feast. The Browns contribute wild onions they gathered along the trail. The Wilsons have a precious jar of pickles they've been saving for a special occasion. Even Mr. Davidson seems to relax a bit, accepting a plate from your M with a rare smile. Fine cooking, Mrs. Benton. He says, reminds me of home after dinner. Someone brings out a fiddle. Mr. Everett, a tall man with hands like hammers, cradles the instrument as gently as a baby and draws the bow across the strings. The music rises into the twilight air. Oh, Susanna, a favorite among the travelers. People gather in the center of the wagon circle, first just tapping their feet, then dancing in earnest. P surprises you by taking Mar's hand and leading her into a lively reel. You've never seen them dance before. Mar's cheeks flush pink and she looks younger, suddenly like the girl she must have been when P first met her. Sarah tugs at your sleeve. Dance with me, Thomas. Before you can protest, she's pulling you into the circle. You're clumsy at first, too aware of people watching, but the music works its way into your bones. Soon you're swinging Sarah around, both of you, laughing for a few precious hours. The hardships of the trail fade. You're not pioneers struggling toward an uncertain future. You're just people enjoying music and company under the vast prairie sky. But morning comes too soon, and with it the familiar routine. The journey waits for no one. The terrain begins to change as August wears on. The flat prairie gives way to more rugged country in the distance. You can make out actual hills, the first real elevation change in hundreds of miles. Chimney Rock rises from the plains like a beacon visible for days before you actually reach it. That's our halfway mark. Davidson tells everyone, "We've come about 1,000 miles, only 1,000 more to go, 1,000 more miles." The words should be daunting, but instead they fill you with a strange pride. You've already come so far. Surely you can make it the rest of the way. Near Chimney Rock, your wagon train encounters another group heading east. It's unusual. Most traffic on the trail flows west this time of year. As they draw closer, you see their wagons are nearly empty, their animals thin. The people haggarded Davidson rides out to meet their leader. They talk for a long time, too far away for you to hear. When Davidson returns, his face is grim. They're turning back. He announces to the gathered families, got as far as South Pass before losing too many oxen to continue. They say the grazing gets worse the further west you go. A murmur runs through the crowd. South Pass is still hundreds of miles ahead, the gateway through the Rocky Mountains. If they couldn't make it, what else did they say? Someone calls out. Davidson hesitates. They passed 3 other trains heading east, all turning back for the same reason. And they say, the Sioux are restless this year, not happy with so many whites crossing their territory. Fear ripples through the group. Everyone's heard stories of Indian attacks, though your train hasn't seen anything but peaceful trading. So far, we'll continue as planned. Davidson says firmly, but we'll need to be more careful with our animals, better grazing, longer rest periods, and we'll post extra guards at night that night. No one brings out the fiddle. The camp is quiet, each family huddled around their own fire, speaking in low voices. The joy of the buffalo feast seems very far away. Your pair sits, cleaning his rifle with unusual care. We'll be fine, he tells you and Sarah, though you haven't asked. Davidson knows what he's doing. You nod, pretending a confidence you don't quite feel. The vastness of the country suddenly seems threatening rather than grand. So much empty space between here and Oregon. So many things that could go wrong. The next day brings a new challenge, a river crossing. It's not the Platte itself, but a tributary that's swollen from recent rains upstream too deep to forge safely. According to the scouts, Davidson orders trees to be cut down to build rafts. The work takes all day. Everyone helping to fell trees, strip branches, and lash the logs together with rope. By sunset, you have 3 sturdy rafts, each big enough to hold a wagon. The crossing begins at dawn. The next day, the first wagon rolls onto a raft, its wheels chocked with stones to keep it from rolling. 4 men with long poles push the raft across the river while the oxen swim alongside, urged on by their owners. The current is stronger than it looks. The first raft drifts downstream before the polers can correct, nearly capsizing before reaching the far bank. But they make it, the wagon rolling safely onto dry land. The second crossing goes more smoothly, the polers having learned from the first attempt. The third raft carries the Jenkins wagon halfway across one of the log's shifts, throwing the raft off balance. The wagon slides sideways, its weight pushing the raft underwater on one side. You watch in horror as the Jenkins family clings to the tilting wagon. The current catches the raft, spinning it around for a moment. It looks like it might right itself. Then the wagon topples into the river with a massive splash. Men on both banks leap into action. Those who can swim dive into the water. Others run downstream, carrying ropes to throw to the struggling family. You stand frozen, Sarah's small hand clutching yours so tight, it hurts the Jenkins parents' surface. First, gasping for air, their oldest son has his little sister on his back, swimming strongly toward shore, but their middle child, Emma, a girl about Sarah's age, is nowhere to be seen. There someone shouts, pointing to a small hand breaking the surface downstream. 3 men swim toward it, but the current is carrying Emma away faster than they can swim. Without thinking, you kick off your boots and plunge into the river. The cold water shocks your system, but you're a strong swimmer from summers in the creek back home. You strike out diagonally, letting the current carry you downstream while angling toward where you last saw Emma. The water roars in your ears. You catch glimpses of the shore, people running, pointing. Then you see her Emma's dress caught on a submerged branch, her head barely above water. You make a final push, reaching her just as she slips under. Your hand catches her dress, pulling her up. She coughs, sputters, eyes wide with terror. "Hold on to me," you gasp. She wraps her arms around your neck in a stranglehold that nearly drags you both under. The shore seems impossibly far away. Your clothes are waterlogged, pulling you down. Emma's weight is crushing, just as your strength begins to fail. A rope splashes down beside you. You grab it with your free hand and suddenly you're being pulled towards shore. Hands reach for you, dragging both of you up onto the muddy bank. Emma is taken from your arms, carried to her sobbing parents. Someone wraps a blanket around your shoulders through chattering teeth. You manage to ask the others, "All safe?" Par says, his arm around you so tight it hurts. Thanks to you, all safe that night. You're a hero in the camp. The Jenkins family gives your parents a precious jar of honey, one of the few luxuries they managed to save from their wagon. Mr. Davidson himself comes to your fire to commend your bravery. But the incident casts a shadow over the train. The Jenkins lost nearly everything. Their wagon, most of their supplies, all their treasured possessions from back home. Other families contribute what they can spare. But it's not much. Everyone's supplies are running low. What will they do? You ask P as you watch the Jenkins setting up a makeshift shelter with borrowed canvas. They'll ride with other families. P says, "We'll make room." That's how it works out here today. Them tomorrow could be us. The Jenkins' oldest son rides with your wagon the next day. He's quiet, still in shock from the near tragedy. You don't know what to say to him, so you just walk in silence occasionally, pointing out interesting rocks or prairie dog holes. Small distractions from his family's loss. By the time you reach Fort Laram in late August, the wagon train has settled into a new rhythm. The Jenkins family is split among 3 wagons, including yours. Emma rides with Sarah in the back of your wagon. The 2 girls have become inseparable, finding comfort in each other. After the River Trauma Fort. Laram is larger than Fort Kearny, a proper military outpost with soldiers in uniform and solid buildings. The sight of the American flag flying over the fort brings unexpected tears to Mars. Eyes feels like civilization, she says, wiping her cheeks quickly. The fort offers a chance to resupply, at steep prices par, trades one of your spare wagon wheels for flour and coffee. The wheel is worth far more, but there's no arguing with the fort's traders. They know they're the only option for hundreds of miles. The truly precious commodity is information. Soldiers and traders at the fort have news from both east and west. The war with Mexico is over, with America gaining vast new territories. Gold has been discovered in California, triggering a rush of fortune seekers. And most importantly for your journey, the reports from Oregon are good, fertile land, moderate climate-growing settlements. Your train stays at Fort Laram for 4 days. The break from travel is welcome, but there's still work to be done. Repairing wagons, restocking supplies, tending to the sick. 2 families decide to winter at the fort rather than risk the mountain crossings with the seasons changing. Your train will leave with fewer wagons than it arrived with on the eve of departure. Mr. Davidson calls a meeting. The easy part is over, he tells everyone bluntly. From here on, we face mountains, deserts, and the worst river crossings. The next stretch to Fort Bridger will test us all. He pauses, looking around at the faces gathered in the fort's courtyard. Anyone having second thoughts should stay here. No shame in waiting till next year. Better that than dying in the mountains. No one from your wagon group steps forward, though you see worried glances exchanged between some of the couples. The Jenkins family surprisingly stands firm. We've come this far. Mr. Jenkins says, might as well see it through. That night, you lie awake in your tent, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the fort soldiers calling to each other as they change guard, the distant nickering of cavalry horses. Tomorrow, you'll be back on the trail, heading into country more rugged than anything you've seen so far. P's voice comes soft in the darkness. Proud of you, Thomas. What you did for that Jenkins girl. Not every man would have done the same. Man, he called you. A man, not a boy. You feel a warmth spread through your chest. That has nothing to do with the August heat. Get some rest, Par. Continues big day tomorrow. But sleep is elusive. Your mind races with thoughts of what lies ahead. Mountains looming on the horizon. The promise and peril of the unknown trail. The journey has already changed you in ways you're only beginning to understand. 1,000 meters. Down 1,000 to go. The true test of the Oregon Trail still awaits the land. West of Fort Laram has a different feel. Wilder somehow. Less forgiving. The gently rolling prairie is replaced by broken country with sharp ridges and deep gullies. The trail follows the North Platte River, but even the river seems different here. Faster, colder, as if eager to escape this harsh terrain. September brings unpredictable weather. One day might be blazing hot, the next. Suddenly cold with biting wind, the mornings always dawn with frost. Now the ground crunching under your boots until the sun rises high enough to melt it. Your wagon train has shrunk to 73 wagons besides the families who stayed at Fort Laram. You've lost 2 more, one turning back after their oxen died. Another, forced to stop when the father broke his leg falling from the wagon seat, or less competition for grass and water. P says pragmatically. Though you notice he doesn't look at Ma. When he says it, everyone knows the real cost of each family that turns back or stops. Fewer hands for the difficult tasks ahead, fewer rifles. If there's trouble, the trail grows steeper as you continue west. The oxen strain against their yokes, moving more slowly each day. You've all learned to walk, bent forward, leaning into the slope like sailors on a tilting deck. Even the canvas wagon covers have a different set, to them pulled taut against the constant wind that blows down from the mountains one morning. As you help P hitch the oxen, you notice dark clouds building to the west. Not the usual afternoon thunderclouds, but something different. A solid wall of darkness that stretches across the horizon. Trouble coming. P mutters, following your gaze by noon. The darkness has resolved into distinct shapes. Riders, dozens of them moving fast across the plain toward the wagon train. Davidson orders the wagons into a defensive circle, women and children inside, men with rifles forming a perimeter. Sarah clutches your sleeve, her eyes wide. Indians, she whispers. Looks that way, you say, trying to sound calmer than you feel. P hands you his old pistol, a single-shot flintlock that's seen better days. Stay with your ma and sister, he says, checking the priming on his rifle. You know how to use this. If needed, the riders approach to within rifle range, then stop. One breaks away from the group, riding slowly toward the wagons. With his hand raised, Davidson and 3 other men walk out to meet him. The rest of you wait, tense and silent, watching the encounter. The meeting goes on for what seems like hours, but is probably only minutes. Then Davidson and the others return to the wagons. It's a band of Sioux. Davidson announces they want to trade, not fight. A collective exhale passes through the wagon circle. P lowers his rifle, though you notice he doesn't set it aside completely. They've got meat and hides. Davidson continues they'll trade for coffee, sugar, ammunition, and cloth, fair trades. Only we need their goodwill to pass through their territory. The trading begins cautiously. A few Indians enter the wagon circle, while the rest wait outside, their tall men wrapped in buffalo robes. Despite the mild day, their faces painted with red and black stripes. They move with a confidence that makes the white men seem awkward. In comparison, one approaches your wagon holding up a buffalo hide. Par nods to Ma, who brings out a small sack of coffee beans. One of your last, the Indian examines. It sniffs it, then holds out the hide. Ma accepts it with a smile and a nod. The Indian's gaze shifts to Sarah and Emma, who are watching wide-eyed from the wagon. He says something in his language, then mimes rocking a baby, pointing to the girls and holding up 2 fingers. He's asking if they're sisters, translates Mr. Wilson, who traded with Indians before. Ma shakes her head, points to Sarah, then to herself, and P, then to Emma, and toward the Jenkins wagon. The Indian nods from inside his robe. He produces 2 small items, dolls made of buckskin with real hair for the heads and tiny beaded dresses. He offers them to the girls. Sarah looks to Ma, who nods. Both girls accept the dolls with shy smiles. Par starts to reach for something to trade in return, but the Indian holds up his hand, shaking his head. He touches his chest and says something that sounds like "we," then points to the river ahead and makes a crossing motion with his arms. He's warning us about the river crossing. Mr. Wilson translates, says it's dangerous. This time of year, the trading continues throughout the afternoon. By sunset, the Indians ride away with coffee, sugar, ammunition, cloth, and even a few metal tools. The wagon train has fresh meat, buffalo hides, and moccasins softer on the feet than worn-out boots that night. Sarah sleeps with her new doll clutched to her chest. You hear her whisper to it about Oregon, promising a nice house with a real roof once you get there. 2 days later, you understand the Indians warning the trail leads to a crossing of the North Platte. Not a ferry this time, but a dangerous ford where the river spreads wide and shallow for a river anyway, still deep enough to reach the wagon beds. Davidson sends scouts to find the best crossing point. They return with grim faces. The recent mountain rains have swollen the river beyond its usual September level. There's no good ford to be found. We'll have to float the wagons. Davidson decides cork the wagon beds, waterproof everything inside, and float them across like boats. It's risky business. Each wagon must be partially disassembled, the wagon box sealed with pitch and tar, then floated across while men wade alongside, guiding it through the current. The oxen swim across, separately struggling against the icy flow. The first few wagons make it across safely, though then comes the Petersonen wagon halfway across. It hits a hidden rock and tilts sharply. Water pours in, and within seconds the wagon is swamped. Mr. Peterson and his sons manage to save some of their possessions, forming a human chain to pass items to shore. But they lose their flour, their sugar, and worst of all, their seed corn for planting in Oregon that night, as everyone dries out around the fires. Your family shares some of your precious flour with the Petersons. Other families contribute what they can spare. No one says the obvious, that without seed corn, the Petersons may not survive their first year in Oregon. We'll make it, Mr. Peterson says, his voice rough with emotion. One way or another we'll make it. The river crossing takes 3 full days. 2 more wagons are damaged, though none as badly as the Petersons, by the time the last wagon rolls up the far bank. Everyone is exhausted, wet and on edge, and the real mountains still lie ahead. The trail now leads through country, unlike anything you've seen before. Towering cliffs of red rock, deep canyons, forests of pine and fir that smell sharp and clean after the dusty prairie. The air is thinner here, making your lungs work harder at night. The cold is intense frost forming on the inside of the wagon cover. By morning, food becomes the constant worry. Game is scarcer in the mountains, and what the hunters do bring back is lean, the animals having already lost their summer fat. In preparation for winter, the grass is sparse and tough, providing little nourishment for the oxen. Davidson orders reduced rations. Breakfast is now a thin gar of cornmeal dinner, a small portion of beans with whatever meat the hunters managed to find. Lunch has been eliminated entirely. The children receive extra portions when possible, but everyone is hungry all the time. The hunger makes tempers short. Arguments break out over trivial matters, whose turn it is to collect firewood, who gets which cut of meat. Davidson steps in when needed, his authority unquestioned, but even he looks worried now, constantly scanning the sky for signs of early snow. In the second week of September, you reach Independence Rock, a massive granite dome rising from the plain like the shell of some enormous turtle. It's a landmark all travelers look for, covered with the names of pioneers who passed this way before you. They say you need to reach Independence Rock by the 4th of July to be sure of crossing the mountains before snow. Davidson tells the gathered families we're more than 2 months behind that schedule. A murmur of concern passes through the group. Snow in the higher mountains would mean disaster wagons, unable to move oxen, starving people, freezing. We'll push harder. Davidson continues. Longer days, shorter rests. We need to reach South Pass within 2 weeks that night. Despite the exhaustion and hunger, there's a small celebration. It's tradition for each family to carve their name on. Independence Rock Parr takes out his knife and carefully etches Benton Family 1847. Into the stone, you add your own mark beneath it. A small star, your personal sign that you were here, that you existed in this moment of history. The trail grows steeper beyond Independence Rock. The wagons struggle up rocky slopes that would have been considered impossible just 1840 months ago. Now they're just one more obstacle to overcome. The oxen are visibly thinner ribs showing through their hides. Some can barely pull their loads and must be alternated with stronger animals. One morning you wake to a strange silence for a moment. You can't identify what's missing. Then you realize the wind has stopped for the first time in weeks. The air is perfectly still, and above the mountains to the west, the clouds hang motionless. Weather's changing. Par says, studying the sky with a frown. By noon, the clouds have moved in dark and heavy. The temperature drops rapidly when the first snowflakes begin to fall. There's a collective groan from the wagon train. It's too early. Someone protests as if arguing with the sky might change its mind. The snow falls lightly at first, then with increasing intensity. Within an hour, the ground is covered with an inch of wet, heavy snow. The oxen low, miserably steam rising from their backs. Davidson orders the wagons to form a tight circle in a sheltered valley. Tarps are stretched between wagons to create additional shelter. Every piece of dry wood is collected for fires. By nightfall, 3 inches of snow cover the ground, and it's still coming down. The temperature continues to drop. Everyone huddles around the fires, wrapped in whatever blankets and buffalo robes they have. Sarah and Emma sit between you and Ma, sharing body heat. Will we freeze? Sarah whispers, her breath visible in the firelight. No squirt, you tell her with more confidence than you feel. It's just an early snow. It'll melt in a day or two, but it doesn't melt the next day or the day after. For 3 days, the wagon train is trapped by snow and bitter cold. The oxen eat what little they can pour from beneath the snow, growing weaker by the hour. On the 4th morning, the sun finally appears bright and surprisingly warm. The snow begins to melt, turning the ground into a muddy quagmire. But at least you can move again. We've lost time. We couldn't afford to lose. Davidson tells the group, from now on, we travel from first light until we can't see the trail anymore. No midday rests unless the oxen are about to drop. The pace is brutal. You walk until your legs feel disconnected from your body, moving automatically while your mind drifts. The mud sucks at your feet, making each step an effort. The wagons creak and groan as they're dragged through the muck. Just when it seems things can't get worse, sickness sweeps through the camp. It starts with the Wilsons' youngest child. Fever, vomiting, bloody diarrhea. Within days, a dozen people are sick, mostly children. Mountain fever, the older folks call it. There's no real treatment except rest and fluids, both in short supply. The wagon train can't stop for the sick. The threat of winter is too great. So the ill are bundled into the wagons, bouncing and jolting with every rut and rock. Their moans join the creaking of wheels and lowing of oxen in the trails, grim chorus. Emma falls ill next, her small face flushed with fever. The Jenkins family is still split among different wagons, with Emma riding in yours. Ma tends to her as best she can, spooning water between her cracked lips, bathing her forehead with precious water warmed by the fire. Will she die? Sarah asks one night, watching Ma tend to the delirious girl. Not if I have anything to say about it. Ma answers, her voice firm. Despite the exhaustion etched on her face for 3 days, Emma hovers between life and death. You take over more of the camps, letting Ma focus on nursing Par, drives the wagon with extra care, trying to avoid the worst bumps for Emma's sake. On the 4th day, her fever breaks. The relief in the wagon is palpable that night when you stop to make camp. Emma asks for food, the first thing she's eaten in days. Others aren't so lucky. The Wilsons lose their youngest to the fever. The Harris's grandfather, already weakened by the journey, succumbs as well. Both are buried in simple graves beside the trail, marked with wooden crosses, that will likely be gone by next spring. The sickness passes, eventually leaving everyone weakened, but moving forward, the mountains loom closer. Each day, their peaks already white with snow. In late September, you reach South Pass, the gateway through the Continental Divide. It's not the dramatic mountain gap you imagined, but a broad, high valley between two ranges. The crossing itself is almost anticlimactic after the struggle to reach it, but the significance isn't lost on anyone. You've crossed the spine of the continent. The waters now flow west toward the Pacific, rather than east to the Mississippi. You're truly in the West, now farther from home than you've ever been that night. Despite the exhaustion and hunger, there's a celebration of sorts. The last of the sugar is used to make a sweet girl. Someone produces a fiddle that hasn't been played since Fort Laramie, and music fills the cold mountain air. You find yourself standing at the edge of camp, looking east toward the way you've come, and west toward the way ahead. The stars seem impossibly close here. The air so clear, you feel you could reach up and touch them. P joins you, his breath clouding in the frosty air. Quite a journey, he says simply. You nod, not trusting yourself to speak the emotions of the past months. Well up. Suddenly the fear, the exhaustion, the moments of beauty and terror, the people lost and the bonds formed. The child who left independence and the person you're becoming will make it. Parr says, as if reading your thoughts. Not everyone will. But we will. You want to ask how he can be so sure, but you don't. Maybe certainty is something you have to create for yourself out here, where nothing is guaranteed. Come on. P says, clapping you on the shoulder. Your M saved you some of the sweet garl. You follow him back to the fire, where Sarah and Emma are giggling over something their recent brush with death already fading from their minds. Ma looks up and smiles, the firelight softening the new lines of worry on her face. The Oregon Trail has already taken so much from all of you, but in this moment huddled around the fire in the vast wilderness, you realize it's given something too, a strength you never knew. You had a clarity about what matters, and a bond with these people, your family and the others forged in shared struggle. Tomorrow will bring new challenges. The long descent from the mountains, the arid lands beyond rivers still to cross winter is coming, and you're in a race against time to reach Oregon before the passes close completely. But tonight you eat your sweet GRL and listen to the fiddle play home. Sweet Home, a song that has a different meaning now than when you left independence. Home isn't a place anymore. It's these people, this wagon, this journey you're on together as you drift off to sleep that night. You wonder what Oregon will be like. Will it be worth all this? You hope. So you have to believe. So, but in a strange way, you're beginning to understand that the journey itself matters just as much as the